Hello everybody, it's white to play in this position. While I'm introducing you to today's subject, please take your time and find the best move for white. Today we are discussing the origins of blunders and cognitive biases that are causing us humans to make mistakes on a chessboard. Today we are discussing the tunnel vision. Tunnel vision happens when people are over-focused on one thing at the cost of ignoring some very important things on a chessboard, right? You can be focusing only on your own plan while your opponent is a very strong threat. You might not perceive the threats behind the opponent's moves. You don't actively search for drawbacks of the opponent's moves. You're over-focused on making your ideas work while ignoring some other parts of the game. So today I will show you very instructive examples of tunnel vision to test you to identify those mistakes, patterns in your mind. Also, in the end, I will give you specific advice on how we can tackle those problems on a chessboard, okay? So let's begin with this position, folks. It's white to play, and if you are a normal human chess player, I'm sure you will see this strong looking rook d7 idea. This is a pattern that many players know by heart. Two rooks on the 7th rank looks beautiful. And this pattern might cause you to miss the best move for white in this position. Why? Because the best move for white is a simple rook h1 and there is no way for black to prevent the mate on the next move. White wins directly. The problem for many players here is they don't see this move as a candidate because they're over-focused on the pattern that rook d7 looks beautiful. So this pattern recognition is, in this case, is blocking them to find the best move. But if I introduce you this position like this, imagine black's last move was rook h5 takes the pawn on g5. Maybe you would find this move easier because you would ask yourself a very important question. What could be the drawback of that last move? What is wrong potentially with rook takes g5? Thus, you would maybe find rook h1 in a nicer and easier way, folks. So this is the first lesson of today. Whenever your opponent makes a move, you should perceive the threats behind that move. But also, very importantly, you should ask yourself, what are the potential drawbacks behind that move? This is one way that you can tackle the tunnel vision in chess. Check this example. That's a beautiful position. White, in the last move, he went queen c4 and set up this beautiful threat of discover check followed by queen takes e4, right? White, by going queen c4, he set up a beautiful idea, tactical idea. Well, he must because white's down the rook. So white is trying to survive and fight. And black just went rook h7 in the actual game. And white, after spending only 4 seconds, I believe, went for this idea. Bishop a7 followed by queen takes e4. You might say, so what? I don't see anything wrong with this. And that's the problem. White was over-focused on this idea that he set up. So he didn't even look at the opponent's last move, which allowed white, can you see it? A mate in 2 folks, queen g8 check, and suddenly black will get mated in 3 moves by force, right? That's it. You see, over-focusing on this single idea was causing white to miss this much nicer finish with queen g8. Why? Because in that moment he did not actively search for the drawback behind the opponent's last move. He ignored the opponent's last move. It's as simple as that. So the algorithm faltered. He was over-focused on this idea. That's the lesson, folks. Whenever your opponent makes a move, just take a step back and look at the board as a whole. Evaluate the position again because things are changing all the time on a chessboard, right? It's a constant flux. Moves are happening, there's constant change. You must ingrain this in your brain. Just take a general look before you execute your idea directly. Another similar idea. In this position, black went knight e5. And after only spending 4 seconds, white just captured the knight and this was an exchange, okay? So I want you to take a step back and ask yourself those important questions. What has changed? What are the threats? And what are the potential drawbacks behind knight e5? Well, everyone can see the threat. This knight wants to capture on c4. And that's exactly why the white player exchanged the bishop for the knight. But if you took a step back and ask, what is the drawback of that move? Well, I'm sure you saw this idea, folks, right? The knight is pinned suddenly. This looks great for white, and after f6, tell me the next move. Yes, I simply go f4, and that knight will be captured on the next move. You see, tunnel vision again for white. This also happens all the time in the actual game, by the way. Moves are happening, people routinely capture and exchange pieces like that because they are not really, right, asking themselves. Again, they don't evaluate the position overall whenever your opponent makes a move. That's exactly what you should do on a chessboard. You should automatize this process, folks. Whenever your opponent makes a move, re-evaluate. Things are changing. But in actual game, right, you're in a flux, you want to make the moves quickly, everyone can see the threat, and white routinely take that knight, and the position was equal again. As a coach, I noticed one big area of mistakes. In this position, black plays queen f6. This was a retreat. The mistake type is this. When the enemy makes a retreat, then they don't perceive the threats. Most beginners, they don't perceive the threats presented behind retreats, because I think in their mind something like this is going on. Hey, just looks like a normal random retreat, right? They don't perceive the potential dangers and threats presented by such moves. Can you do better than white in this position? It's white to play, folks. Queen f6. What should white play in this position? Because in the actual game, tunnel vision happened. White focused on its own plan and just castle long. And tell me which move was given to black as a result. Yes, g5. This was the whole point behind queen f6, and the bishop is pinned and white is losing material. So take a step back. I want you to follow the algorithm. Whenever your opponent makes a move, what's the first question? Yes, am I facing a threat? What will be their next move if I don't make a move right now? And once you identify g5 as a threat, yes, you go h4, and it's white who is having a huge advantage. You will castle long, much better development, and white is just crashing in this position, but you cannot just miss a threat, right? So again, in the heat of a battle, white did not stop and ask himself, what are the potential threats behind queen f6? He only perceived this move as a mere passive retreat. Please do better, and you fight against tunnel vision, folks. A similar problem that I witnessed as a coach. In this position, black went rook d8, and most beginners, they perceive such moves as, oh, it looks like a normal, only passive defensive move. He made that move for the sole purpose of defending his bishop on d4, which was hanging. Thus, the algorithm collapses. White doesn't ask himself the most fundamental question. What will be my opponent's next move if I don't make a move right now? Can you see it? Yes. Bishop f2 followed by rook takes d1 is a big threat, but white misses this threat and he goes c5 in the actual game. He's only focusing on his own plan. He's stopping c5 in his own mind, right? Thus, he allows bishop f2 followed by rook d1. Oh my god, right? So here the algorithm falters. White has a tunnel vision. White doesn't evaluate the situation as a whole. White doesn't evaluate what is new, what is changed, what are the new possibilities for the opponent, and thus he's only focusing on his own plan of stopping c5 and thus loses the game directly. Please, folks, you can do better than this. Another very instructive mistake here, folks. Black in this position, he sees the knight on f5. That's white's most active piece, only active piece in fact. And he says, you know what, this knight is not dangerous. I cannot go g6 right now because my pawn will be hanging. So he says, I will first go king h7, I will guard my pawn, and then I will kick your beautiful knight on f5 with g6 and have a beautiful position. What is he missing? You tell me. After king h7, what is he missing? Which move is he allowing white in this position, folks? Yes, he allows h4, and suddenly this knight has no retreat square left, and white wins material. Incredible, right? So beautiful. The mistake is totally about over-focus on its own plan. He doesn't blunder check, right? In his mind, okay, I will first do this, I will do this, and I will have a beautiful position. He doesn't stop and ask actively, what are the potential drawbacks behind this move, king h7? Yeah, the drawback is that now the knight has no retreat, right? The blunder check process falters. The blunder check, you must always blunder check your moves. Imagine you're about to play king h7, you must actively search for the most forcing moves by the opponent against king h7. And yes, h4 is a very forcing move, correct? Because that's a threat, that's an attack on your knight. So black must have seen this and thus refused to play king h7, but tunnel vision kicks in. He's only focusing on his own plan, and thus he blunders. Folks, I want you to also show you this beautiful game of Alekhine to highlight how super grandmasters have solved this problem of tunnel vision, how they are flexible, because it's also about flexibility, right? Think about that. Tunnel vision is sort of anti-flexibility. You have to have a flexible mind. You should be very attuned to changes in the position, to change your plans adaptively. In this position, folks, Alexander Alekhine plays knight e7. That's a beautiful move because this knight wasn't doing anything, and now the knight can actually establish on that d5 outpost if white ever takes the pawn, plus black might signal the move a4 in this position. But after a4, which white stops black's intentions, can you guess Alekhine's next move, folks? I love this next move. It's a beautiful move. And because, again, many players would say, hey, knight e7 is totally designed to attack and sacrifice on the king side because my pieces are pointing that way and I want to crash you on the king side. So you would interpret knight e7 routinely, single-handedly as a move that signifies attack on the king side. But look what Alekhine does. Alekhine goes knight c6. Why? Because now he says, you know what? You just push the pawn to a4 and I will exploit that newly, freshly created weakness on b4. This is flexibility, textbook example of flexibility, right? And that's exactly how super GMs are playing chess. Again, I will show you this segment again, folks. In this position, Alekhine goes knight e7. And after a4, he looks at the drawback of that pawn move and he goes back to c6, b4, because from b4 the knight will become a monster on d3. And look how the game progresses. Bogolyubov Alekhine, the knight establishes on b4, the queen comes back. Again, flexibility in mind. Many players will say, hey, I already committed my queen to the king side, I have to attack your king, I have to sacrifice. Look how flexible is Alekhine playing this position. The idea is very simple. I want to take, and I want to take on a4, and I want to win on the queen side. And if you ever take my pawn on d5, it only helps my knights. Look how beautifully he's playing this segment. Center and queen side, he's eyeing after queen e8. Another beautiful queen retreat, folks. And I will show you very, very quickly how we just win a pawn, right? And after bishop takes a4, Alekhine simply won a pawn and later won this game in a beautiful fashion. I will post this game, link of this game on the description below. Let's summarize today's lesson, folks. How did you find this video? Do these examples speak to you, first of all? That's my question. Please send your ideas to me on YouTube. I'm very curious. Were you, for example, making similar mistakes in your games? And what are the potential causes of it? And how can we get better at that? That's my question. Obviously, there are cognitive biases. No one is completely immune from those things. That's a human brain that are sort of causing all these cognitive biases and psychological processes when we're playing chess, right? But by using critical thinking skills and by being aware of those problems, we can tackle those. We can get better at these issues, folks. My conclusions are that, first of all, we see once and again, right, how important the opponent is in chess. Chess is a game of two guys or girls that are constantly on a dialogue with each other, right? Your opponent has a fundamental role in this game. It's like tennis, it's like boxing, right? You must always be attuned of what it's coming to you by the opponent. Look at the threats, look at the opponent's ideas, look what he or she presents, look at the potential drawbacks of the opponent's last move. That's already a first step, huge step for us to maybe tackle this problem of tunnel vision, right? Because tunnel vision, you're over-focused on one thing, and usually it's about your own plans, obviously, at the cost of what the opponent wants to do to you, right? It's also about the candidate move search, right? We should always give ourselves more choices on the very first move to choose from. We should open our minds to several possibilities instead of choosing one plan and focusing only on that small idea, okay? This also takes skills, of course. Sometimes you have to actually go against the patterns that look good, right? For example, that rook on the 7th rank problem. Everyone can see that two rooks on the 7th rank will be great, but that might be causing actually mistakes in actual games, right? Because you're missing on the alternative and, easier solutions, for example. The opponent's threats. retreats especially, or recaptures. I witnessed as a coach, people tend to miss those moves. They don't perceive them, right? When you retreat, for example, they usually miss what are the threats that are presented behind such moves. Instead, we should follow the algorithm always to the end. What is the algorithm? Whenever your opponent makes a move, you must actively search for the potential threats. What will be their next move if I don't make a move right now? That's always the first question. Even though your opponent's last move was just a retreat or recapture, or even like a merely defensive looking move, you should always be alert, folks. And if the algorithm falters, and that's also why it's so cruel. Chess is such a cruel game because you can play the best game in your life. If you make a single mistake, then you can lose that game. Thank you so much for today, folks. And if you want to have further information about these subjects, you can check my course, Chess Crime and Punishment on Chessable. I also talk about such fundamental thought processes on that course. And please give me a like and subscribe if you like this video, because I will put more of similar content tying human psychology, cognitive science, and chess mistakes. I will catch you on the very next episode, folks. Thank you so much.